explain everything. Oh, it doesn't work. Now it works. Yeah. So, sorry for the delay. We're starting exactly 30 minutes later. Some people were late, so I thought it doesn't make sense to start without more people. But given the delay, we'll keep in mind the 30 minutes. So we have 30 minutes. We'll show you what we've learned of how to manage remote workers and sort of give you an impression of what it is. I already spoke with most of you, and I got to know that you're into the remote culture. But anyway, hope to enrich your knowledge. And then we'll have afterwards a chat with Bryan from Zapier, who plug in remotely, of course, and we will have basically a short conversation. And I think the questions you asked in the meetup, they were included here in the sheet. So let's see how it will go. And then there is, of course, networking part. You already dropped drinks, so that's all good. But first of all, who are we? RemoteMore is a startup here at APX. So for those of you who want to start a startup, you should go and speak with the guys from APX. They're really great. But what we do is that we empower companies and people and developers to work remotely together. So we're actually a Danish-Bulgarian startup. We've lived in Denmark 8 years, and we've had to relocate from Denmark, so we came from the north to Berlin. All right, so what is exactly remote work? I know there are many misconceptions because I've spoken with so many people and the majority don't really understand what it is, to be honest. So first of all, remote work is, full-time remote work is not freelancing. So when you hire somebody for freelancing, you would expect that this person will do a project for 1 or 2 weeks. This person knows that he's appointed just to do a specific task and then go outside to the company, probably hire him from Upwork or any other platform. This is not the case here. It's not outsourcing. Well, sometimes it could be great to work with cross-functional teams. You most probably just send requirements to this team and you expect that they'll deliver content or code in a specific period of time. It doesn't mean that you have broken schedules. It doesn't mean that you start wherever you feel best. Quite the contrary, you should start as you do probably in the office. Let's say if you work 8 hours a day, you would start from 9 to 5, for example. And it doesn't mean that you have to work in different time zones with some person who you never saw or you never talked with. You should hire and you should work with people in your time zone so you have an overlap and you can actually cooperate together. And what we define by remote work at RemoteMore is basically as you do in the office, but from distance. And from distance, we like to say that people work from where they feel best. For example, I really like to work in an environment where there are more people and more extroverted. When my co-founders really like to focus deep on problems. And when they sit here, for example, in the office, they feel often disturbed, so they feel like they have to go in a quiet room. That's perfectly fine because you have to be productive and to feel best. There are many great remote companies already, so they're leading the example. Zapier will be with us today. Does it annoy you, the pointer? I don't know. Try to remove it. There are many great companies which work remotely. Zapier, as mentioned, they will join us and they will lead a team of 250 people. They don't have office. And of course, at RemoteMore, we are working remotely, so we've got something to share for you. Why remote work first? Why should you do it? First of all, you'd like to work and to establish your process for remote work because you'd like to get access to more developers. If you simply do the math, if you hire on a global scale, there are so many more opportunities and you don't need to delay your hiring processes. There is access to better developers. You hire people because of their skills, not just because you have to fill some spot in your company. Increased employee productivity. That actually might sound a bit contrary, but because people are working from distance and they know that they have to show that it works, they actually force themselves to deliver more. And especially in countries like Ukraine, Russia, they're not really, as I've heard from talking to developers, they're not that really great companies to work with. Most of it will be outsourcing, so they're really excited to work with real product that really has meaning to the world. And increased employee engagement. What we mean by this is that because they work remotely, there is actually friction when you communicate. That's no secret. But because you have a friction, you actually can focus deeper into the problems you have, and you talk only when it's necessary. And there is increased employee retention. Simply removing the barriers means that the developer can go and work for wherever they feel best. If his girlfriend or boyfriend are moving somewhere else, they don't need to quit your company. They could just go and work close to their families. And as a result, they're more happy, which increases also productivity. Yes, but given how cool it sounds, probably wondering how can we make this work? And there are different tips and suggestions how you can do it. As a start, you need to nail two things. First is to integrate them well in your communication flows. And the second one is that you need to integrate them well in your information flows. A bit later in my presentation, I will show you what exactly and how it could be done with different tools, because the software existing and the fact that you don't know it doesn't mean it's not there. So it is there and it's possible. But practicalities. As a starting point, it's good, as mentioned, to fix your schedule. For example, if you work with your employees in the office from 9 in the morning until 4, then it's probably a good idea to do the same for remote work. It's also a good idea that you don't hire people outside of your time zone, because I've also been speaking with companies here in Berlin, and they say, but we are in Berlin, we hired a person in Brazil, and it just doesn't work. The last point is actually contradictory, is that because you have your computer with you the whole time, you always feel the need to do something. And it actually can be hard to pull off of work, so it's really important that you organize the work such that you shut off the computer and enjoy the rest of the day. We really like Slack, and I'll talk also a bit about it later, but with Slack we realized it's good to organize such that their statuses, for example, available, deep work, don't distract me, AFK, so I'm taking a lunch, but I'll be back, no worries, I'm working. And I'm offline, so don't disturb me. And 4 channels we figure out are good to organize your work process. Is the general one. When you sign up to Slack, you'll see there is a general chat. This is basically where you coordinate your work. Team channel, it's basically if you're having a sales channel, so salespeople can coordinate their work there. If you're having a front-end, back-end teams, you should also organize it by channels, so they talk only the specific topic. Random is basically what we have here, the water cooler. So you just send random links, random communication, just talk normally. And appreciation, we figure out ourselves that this is a really good channel. So if somebody does something good, you basically show appreciation to the other person that he has done a good job. Because it might feel a bit lonely, so it's nice to be polite to the rest of your team members. So if you hire outside of your country on a remote basis, it's probably a good idea to stick to English. Given that you're here at this meetup, you all speak English, so this wouldn't be that hard for you to do it. And it's also a good idea that you hire people who are actually good communicators. The fact that you do work that is related only to machines doesn't mean that you don't speak the rest of the people and don't need to work on your skills to communicate well. So this is really important. And a few things. Well, there is no office, so you could work without office, as we'll hear probably from Bryan. It's probably a good idea if you employ people who work remotely to pay for their, for example, for a good computer if you feel the need to do so, or some other equipment. And I know companies are doing retreats where they will meet and socialize for 2 weeks, for example, go to sunny Spain and meet for 2 weeks to meet each other. So this is also good practice. With the cultural values, you should always assume that they're good intention. In good intentions, the fact that somebody is not instantly replying to your messages doesn't mean that they're not working. Quite the contrary, they might be super busy and that's why they're not replying, so relax. The good thing, the thing I like about remote work is that you can focus on results. One misconception I always hear, and I've always also had friends who tell, I went to work for 8 hours, I did basically nothing. I just watched a movie, I was there, they knew I was there, and it was great. So with remote work you can't do this, because you have to deliver results, otherwise it's not working. So you could organize your work processes in such a way that you focus on the results. And you have to over-communicate. Whenever you feel that you're talking too much or writing too much, relax, it's probably on the good side. So whenever you're doubting, keep communicating. And as mentioned, there are a few tools that we really like and that we recommend. For instant messaging, we really like Slack, but we know HipChat is also used in the companies. As we use today, Zoom, it's an amazing tool because you can schedule up meetings to 100 people. At the same time, you could share a screen, mouse, so it's really fantastic one. And you should use it when you want to talk a bit deeper, and sometimes chatting could be hard, so just schedule a video call and talk. It's basically the same as you do in the office. For emails, it's probably good that you keep points that are a bit longer and you don't need an immediate reply, so you could do it over email. And for phone calls, it's probably a good idea that you reserve it just for emergencies and not while, for example, Saturday evening you're calling him, why not replying to me? Well, it's a weekend, so. For code sharing, we use GitHub. I know it's great because the company owns the code and developers can contribute to this code, and you can also follow version control, so you know what has happened in the past. File sharing, it's really cheap with Google G Suite. You can get 30 gigabytes for, I don't know, €5 or something like this. And for project management, we really like Trello. We use it a lot. It's really good to organize your work. You could put there file sharing, you could organize boards according to teams, and it's, as I'll show you a bit later, it's integrated into the work process as well. But I know there are other tools, Asana as well, which are very similar. Other tools we use is 1Password. It's basically a file sharing tool where, a password sharing tool. It's very secure, it's very cheap, but also €5 or €6 for a team or something like this, I'm not sure. And you basically store the passwords there, you could organize them by teams. So for example, if you're having a bank account, you want to share the co-founders go remotely, you could separate it from the rest of the team. Real-time board, we'll figure out it's a good replacement of whiteboards, physical whiteboards. It's also for free, so it's a great tool. And these depends on the system you use. For example, Mac, you could do really easily. You could do screen sharing and record your screen and take screenshots of what you're working on. So some of you might be wondering, but we're working with Scrum, and Scrum doesn't really work remotely. Well, it does, but you have to adjust a bit for it. So if this is how your Scrum board looked in the past on a whiteboard, I'm not saying it does, but it might be. You could also do the same in Trello. So this is your virtual board where you organize the work processes. It doesn't take much effort, and I probably guess most of you are already doing it. So what we do at RemoteMore is that usually we'll have a video call, daily stand-up, 5 to 10 minutes, where we discuss what everybody's going to do during the day, just to organize the work process. Weekly sprint backlog, where we discuss feedback. Actually, I like to call it feedback because we changed it a bit. Basically Sunday or Friday when you're working, you can block a few hours, discuss feedback, what needs to be improved on the product, on the sales process. So it's a great tool to do it. Bi-weekly one-on-ones. If you're a manager or somebody who's working remotely, it's probably a good idea for 15 minutes to sit down and talk what's working well, what's not working well. So you get an impression of how things are going on. And as mentioned, there are retreats where you can gather all of the team together. So what about hiring and how does it work? When you hire so my background is I have masters from Oxford University from Denmark, but I also as bachelor student and as master student I published already 3 papers. So I was going into the research space and I was invited to do a PhD at the university there, but I didn't do it, fortunately. No offense to all PhDs. Just theory is not my field and I like to do practical things. But the positive thing was that when we sit to look for remote work, there is a ton of research what makes successful remote work team and how they work together. So researchers found a few variables that correlate quite well with the process, and we've actually developed a remote work assessment that allows you to track of those variables and to see if the person really has them. While remote work can sound cool and nice, not all people can do it, unfortunately, and you should try to pre-screen for those who can. So first of all is autonomy. What we mean by autonomy is that people would be independent, they can work independently and basically wouldn't rely so much on you. Emotional stability, this correlates with autonomy as well, that people wouldn't freak out when they're alone and that they can do the tasks independently. And communication, as mentioned, the fact that you're working behind the screen doesn't mean that you're not a human. Actually, you should develop your communication skills and communicate well with the rest of your team. What we like to call is that you want to hire from missionaries, not from mercenaries. So you want to hire people who would benefit to your company and would give not 100% but 200%. A good example is, they're not here, but there is a startup here who works remotely, and I talked to the CTO, a company is called Imagine Cargo. He told me we hired remote people. We really didn't know if it's going to work or not, but those people don't deliver 100%, they deliver 200%. Because they first like remote work, and secondly, they want to help me build this company into something great. I'll do a shameless plug of what we do at RemoteMore. So here at RemoteMore, we help companies to become remote ready. We are systemizing the process of becoming remote ready, and we can help you implement remote work. We've developed a marketplace where you can come and find remote developers. The way it works is that you come, post a job description, you can make it active or inactive, and people within our network would express interest. Then you can come and see their job profile. We've pre-screened them so you can see a video interview and tests, so you can see code snippets of how they program. It's shown a bit down further. So you get an impression if this person really is a capable programmer. And if you're still not sure if this person is fit for you, you could request extra video or tests. And at the end, when you're convinced that you're having a fit, you could shoot a message, which will be shown a bit in 2 seconds. You schedule a meeting, and then after you hire this person, you see him as a hires, and you can pay invoices through our system. Now we'll have the chat with Bryan. I'm not sure where is my co-founder because he's talking with him right now. But before that, so what's Zapier? Yeah, I think he joined the call. So what Zapier is? Zapier is it's pretty popular, cool company. We use it. Their services in our startup. allows marketeers to connect different tools. For example, if you have HubSpot, you can connect it to SendGrid, and then you would make it work very easily. They are part of Y Combinator, the most innovative accelerator in the world. Companies from their portfolio include Airbnb, Dropbox, GitLab, and many more. Valuation of above 150 billion. They're 100% remote, so I'm really excited to hear what he will say. And they have 250 people working remotely. Yeah, let's.
Yeah, I spoke with him just now, and he is online.
Sure, I will just grab my computer.
Perfect. And Boris, you can switch on the screen. Recording. Yes.
Just 1 second. Share my screen. Yours.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great. How's everybody?
Unfortunately, you can't see our audience, but we have many people here who are eager to. They can see you. You're on a big screen, so they can definitely see you. And I've already introduced Zapier and introduced you, so I did my best to promote you in the best possible way. As mentioned, and as we talked in our previous call, we will discuss for a while how you do remote work. And for a start, maybe you can share how you started with remote work and how did you make the decision?
Yeah, so Zapier is a little over 7 years old, and when we began, it was just us 3 founders. It was myself, Mike, and Wade. And we were working, I think the classic early day startups, we were working nights and weekends, we were doing that whole thing, and we were just working online. I think at that time, it wasn't Slack, it was like, I think probably like GChat or something like that. It's probably what we used. So we were working that way. We were working sometimes together, sometimes apart, handing stuff off through GitHub or whatever tools we used at the time. And that was just the way that we worked. So it felt really natural that in the digital space where we were doing all this stuff, that's how work got done. And the decision really got first and foremost, we went to Y Combinator in the summer of 2012, if I'm getting the numbers right, and we were just doing so much support at that time. We were answering so many emails, helping out users, which was great. It's a good thing to do. But we were like, okay, we got to hire someone. And the people that we knew were back home. So they were back in Missouri while we were out in California, and we trusted those folks. And then we're going to move to California. We don't think it made sense. We had been working this way a little bit before. So the decision at that point was, well, could we have them do this remote thing? At the time, we had been big fans of 37 Signals, Basecamp, some of the tools that they had done, and they wrote a little bit about remote. So it all just kind of made sense for us, and that was kind of the introduction to remote and how we really laid that foundation. And the next couple of people we wanted to hire were also back in the Midwest, in the middle of the States. So we hired those folks and just continued to grow out the team and did it mostly that way through certainly a piece of accidental, a little bit of intentionality, and it all kind of working.
Yeah, so it sounds like it was, and you also said it was very natural. way to solve your hiring problems at the same time to get to work with people, you know. But how did you do with the fact that you cannot see people if they're working or not? Like, I know you knew them, but still, you know, there are conflicts when you work. So how do you deal with these things?
Yeah, definitely. To start, we trusted these folks, and that's generally the people you want to hire in the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's always smart. But you know, something that's we often get this question: how do you make sure people are staying busy or adding value? And when it comes to knowledge work, and if you're writing code, if you're making designs, if you're answering tickets, all this stuff is digital artifacts, and you can look at that. So you can see, is an engineer committing code? Is that code doing what we need it to do for users? Are they helping review code? Yeah. So there's a digital breadcrumb trail of things that are going on. So I think it's kind of the same answer as like, how do you make sure people in a co-located place are being busy and productive and adding value? You look at their output, and you just work with them to increase the output. So that's always been at the root of what we do. It's knowledge work, we work online, it's where all the stuff happens. Even if we were all in the same room together, a lot of that work would still exist in the digital realm, so the output is one and the same.
So you basically focus on results and not that much on how many hours you spend. So sounds very reasonable, and this is also one of the things we discussed here with the rest of the people that focus on results. But now, since you're 250 people, how do you have probably people in different time zones, and how do you deal with it?
So in the early days, we didn't have as much time zone diversity as we do now. And when you're smaller, you can kind of get away with a lot more, like you can be a little more free form in how you communicate. What I think remote does is it forces you to get a lot more particular and a lot more defined in how you communicate and how you work earlier. This is stuff that you have to go through. You have to decide as a company how you're going to work. It's not any different from remote. But the inflection point at which you need to have that in place happens sooner in remote, so you have to be a little bit ahead of the curve there. And it's doubly so if you're adding multiple time zones. And we're certainly not, we haven't figured it out, we're not like flawless when it comes to time zones by any means. Some of the things we found work really, really well is we have values at Zapier. One of the first ones is default to action. It's a more forgiveness over permission sort of a culture. So we'd rather you make a call, an educated guess, move forward, than let yourself get blocked. And that generally helps people who may have to wait a whole 24 for the Earth to spin an entire time around to get an answer. That's a very long latency to get work done. So you have to have people who are like a little bit comfortable doing that. And you have to have a culture that lets people do that. Every now and then, someone will make a call that you have to like back up, you have to change, you have to tweak, and that's fine. That's a cost of kind of doing business. So you have to be a really blameless culture to make that work. And then there's other places where time zones actually work really, really well, and you can use them to your advantage. A great example is for infrastructure, SRE, at Zapier, you have folks all over the world who work on that, and they can take the pager at night. So if you're in the States, you don't have to get up at 3 a.m. because like the database is starting to act funny, right? So there's really great benefits in some cases where you can get that, and even great benefits for customers for support. We do a kind of round-the-clock support as well, and nobody has to stay up and work weird shifts or whatever. We just hire to make sure to have that kind of round-the-clock coverage. So that's often places where you can take advantage of the time zones as well. But in the places where you do have to manage it, we found that kind of creating a culture that lets people push forward and default to action is really important. Try to keep teams a little bit co-located. A couple hours of overlap is usually ideal in those cases, but especially for engineers and developers, having that quiet time is also really nice. I don't know how the audience feels, but I certainly know for me, having a really quiet kind of workspace, a really quiet working environment helps them be a lot more productive.
Totally. This is what I also shared with the audience is that, for example, our CDO likes to focus a lot on deep problems, and it requires so much attention. So if you're in office, there's so much distraction. You also touched upon the culture, and I want to get you back there. How difficult was it for you to establish a strong culture at Zapier, given that your remote team, and what are the techniques? I know you already touched upon them, but I would like to get you back there.
Yeah, I think, you know, for us, culture is often, it's how you behave. It's a collection of behaviors and patterns inside of an organization. And one of the things we try to do is, I mentioned a value, but we have 5 different values, and we've tried really hard to make them not be posters, if that makes sense. Like, I think we've all been at companies, and maybe some folks are at companies now that have like values of be excellent and great work, right? Which I think is kind of table stakes, like that's what we're here to do. So you kind of have to have values that sort of take a position. Maybe in a, let's say, a highly regulated environment, it would not be smart to have a default to action value, because there might be some significant consequences of making the wrong call, right? So if this is life and limb, that's not move fast and break things is not a good idea, right? So in those cases, that value is actually completely counter to what you wanted to build inside of your company. So we've tried to stack up our values around things that we think are really important and embody what we believe. One of my favorite values is Zapier, besides the default action, I like quite a bit. But one of my favorite ones is don't be a robot, build the robot, which is a little tongue-in-cheek and is in alignment with our product itself. So we believe in automation, we believe in dog fooding, we believe in being productive and having scaling out a team at a certainly sublinear fashion. So if you have twice as much work, you want them to do it with less than twice as many people. That's ideal. And that's really in alignment with our product as well, and really in alignment with remote and making sure people aren't blocked, making sure that there's things happening around the clock. You don't have to wait on a particular person to give you the go ahead or unblock you for something. These are all a part of the culture and the ethos. So it takes purposeful design around those.
Totally. And I think that's why it works, because you think deep about it, how you can make it work. Totally. I'll switch to another point, and that's where we're wondering how much automation do you use within the engineering team, and could you give some examples of that? And does it help you with remote work?
Yeah, definitely. So I have a lot of personal automations that I use. Like I have things where I star stuff in Slack and it sends myself an email, so I can track it in there. I have things that track my calendar and update my status in Slack, so people know that, hey, I'm chatting with Boris here. Like they know that I'm not going to be available because my Slack status has been updated. So I have personal ones like that, and everybody has their own individual ones like that set up. And then aggregate, you kind of see all these like robots running around Zapier doing lots of interesting and helpful things. There are some really specific team-like things that we do. A good example is we run regular meetings for different teams, and we have Zaps set up that copy templates and do kind of like a mail merge style thing, and then drop that link into the Slack room 20 minutes or 50 minutes before a call starts, so people can get in and add their comments or add their things that they want to talk about. And you can even like have it copy in stuff from maybe last week's action items. You can add those back in and then reflect on them or update them. Like, oh, we did that. Oh, we couldn't do that. So it's an interesting way to run like a weekly stand-up using templates and using scheduled Zaps and stuff like that. So we have tons of things like that. There's like all kinds of bots running around on Slack and across stuff, all our stuff.
Totally. At the end of the day, it's all about efficiency. I'm curious, what are you looking for in remote job candidates, and if somebody from the audience is interested to work remotely for Zapier, how can they get in touch and win you over?
Yeah, I mean, we have all of our jobs up. We try to post them all publicly on our site, such as zapier.com/jobs. But some of the things that we think a lot about when we think of hiring, of course, it's the values, but we're always looking for folks who can work a little bit autonomously, who have that experience to kind of lean in and maybe unblock themselves, push forward. It's always interesting. So there's some companies that kind of do a mixed environment. Some companies that are fully remote or fully co-located. We found that if the communication medium that you worked in over time happens to be more asynchronous, more email, more text-based, it generally works better. So classically, we see stuff like folks who've done agencies or consultancies. If you're working with clients, usually that interaction is done more digitally, which really gives a leg up because so much of what we do is just communication, making sure that we have really good comms. There's not a lot of companies out there that do remote, so if you're really excited about that, you should learn a lot about the companies and try to, because there's not so many that you couldn't really learn intimately what they do, and try to be interested in the company for what they do. I don't know how many times we get applicants who are like, I'd love to have a remote job, or I want to work from home, and that's their connection, which we believe in working from home and remote and everything like that. But you're also competing with everyone in the world, right?
Exactly.
Which means that you'll work with really amazing people, but it also means that you also have folks who are putting a lot of effort into how they're applying and who they're applying to, and being very thoughtful about that. So the bar is a little bit different than what you might be used to in a co-located environment, where it's within a certain radius of a headquarters or something like that. So that's something to think of when you're applying as well. You don't want to stay shallow in your interest. You want to kind of show like, hey, this is why I'm excited. This is some interesting stuff going on, and really kind of step up because you're competing on a global stage.
Totally agree. But thank you very much for the call. I'm really happy that we could share the knowledge about remote work and make everybody ready to work remotely in the global job market.
Of course.
Thank you very much, and my next slide, I'm having the robot you talked about, so I will tell the rest of the audience how they can apply for the job openings. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Awesome, thank you, Boris. Thanks to you, everybody. Bye.
So this is the robot he talked about. If some of you is interested to work with Zapier, as he mentioned, there are 32 job openings at the moment. So you should go ahead and apply there. So since we discussed the practices, you heard also Bryan talked about how they do it at Zapier, and they have a really strong remote culture. Now you're ready to go and work remotely. Keep in mind that you have to start small, keep iterating on the process, because the fact that they work at their company doesn't mean that they'll work in the same way as you do, so you have to twist some things. And world dominance, advance and conquer, hire the best people, be productive. And if somebody is interested in using our solution, we offer a discount. Come to talk to me after the finish. And we prepared a special handout of, I think, 20 pages around. There is a ton of content. Take screenshots. Maybe you put. Would you put the links to the Meetup?
Yes.
And the slides, so you can download the content from there and maybe share it or something like this, the way you feel best. Thank you, and see you again.
And of course, we are staying for the network.
Oh yeah. We'll be here if you want to talk with us. Thank you for reminding me. We should of course also engage the rest of the people because we want to create a good remote community in Berlin and help everybody. So, looking forward to it. Bye bye.